Hey there, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. I am Mackenzie. I'm who you've been emailing with. This is my supervisor, Anna. She's gonna hang out with us.
Yeah, nice to meet you both.
You too.
Yeah, you too. So this program is geared towards children. So we're gonna ask you some really easy questions, not crazy and all. We're not gonna like give you the third degree or anything. So first of all, do you want to tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do, what your job is?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Steve Weiss, and I'm the curator of the Southern Folklife collection, which is an archive. It's part of a special collections library here at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And sorry?
Continue, sorry.
Oh, sure. And what I do is I oversee a staff of folks, and we collect material, we make it accessible, we preserve it, and we disseminate it. So we do special programs in order to present it to the public, so that way the public can interact with the kinds of things that we've collected.
Are most of the things that you collect sound recordings?
Yeah, I would say the majority of our archive is sound recordings. Yeah.
What else do you have that is not a sound recording?
Well, let's see. We have film and video and posters and manuscripts, people's personal papers. Yeah, a lot of books and videos as well.
What is your personal favorite part of the collection? Do you have something that you really are drawn to that's really special to you?
Trying to think, there's so many things. I think, one of the things that is really special to me is a recording that a donor dropped off a few years ago. She called me up out of the blue, and anyway, she had recorded, when she was a young woman, she had recorded an album in France. She was originally from North Carolina. So when she lived in Paris, she recorded this album, and the album, was made and was released to folks in Paris, and it over the years, it achieved a cult following. Anyways, she had the master tapes and she wanted to do something with it. And I said, well, it sounds interesting. Why don't you send it to us? And we listened to it when it came, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. She passed away a few years ago, but I got to know her, and we just had a really nice bond in terms of, we really enjoyed each other's company, and it was fascinating for me to get to know her because I enjoyed her music so much.
That is very, very cool. Yeah, I love that. So you guys are in North Carolina. How does North Carolinian folk music differ from folk music from other parts of the country?
Well, there's a couple different strains of folk music in North Carolina. So I think some of the things that we're really best known for is, a lot of the music that comes from the mountains in terms of Appalachian, old time and bluegrass are really closely associated with Western North Carolina. And probably one of the most prominent musicians from that area was Doc Watson, whose music is just, again, one of my favorites. When you were asking me, what's some of my favorite music in the collection, I think some of the stuff that we have of Doc Watson just really, is it for me. But let's see, in the Piedmont, we have a really rich Piedmont blues tradition. So I think that's part of what makes, this area so unique. One of the great musicians from the Piedmont is Elizabeth Cotton, but there's a lot of blues musicians that were associated with mostly Durham, but also in Chapel Hill as well. A lot of great blues musicians coming from there. Um, and then also, more in the eastern part of the state, one of the things that's makes North Carolina really unique was some of the jazz and funk musicians coming out of North Carolina. So folks like George Clinton, who started, Parliament Funkadelic, Maceo Parker, who was the sax player for James Brown, but also folks like, Nina Simone and John Coltrane. I mean, these are just such major figures in the history of American music. And I think, a lot of them you can hear North Carolina in their music.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you think that folk music influences that kind of music, the progression of blues, of funk? How does folk music affect that and
Yeah.
the
Well,
progression of it?
I think that all of these strains, I've noticed in my life that, music change is a constant change, but it's always based on the roots. And so, it continuously evolves. If you look at, like the last 100 years, and you see how you go from blues, from the blues into jazz, into R&B, into soul, into hip hop. Funk and then hip hop. I mean, there is a progression, and you can feel it all the way through. And you can even go back 100 years and you can hear things in that music that you can identify with today.
For sure. So your job, you had to go to college, you had to do a lot of school. So if there are any kids out there watching this that might want to have a job like yours one day, what would they have to do?
Ooh. Well,
what would college look like for them, their
Or-
career path?
Or maybe how did you decide to
Sure.
get into this type of librarianship, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny. I think most of the people that go into archives never really knew of it as a career. They just sort of like ended up along that path. I mean, for me, when I was growing up, I was always really interested in audio and music history. And, I ended up going to music school. And after that, I worked in recording studios in New York City, and then I drifted down to the DC area, which is close to where I grew up. And I started working for the Smithsonian Folkways, which was a record label, but it was based on historical recordings. And I just chanced upon it, and that was really a passion for me. Um, and I realized, hey, this is what I'd really like to be doing. And I befriended the archivist there, and I asked him the question of, how did you get to, get into this? How did you get started? And he suggested I go to library school, because that's what he did, to get that training. And I was able to take, my interests with library school and bring them together and start finding some jobs where I could get the experience in order to do what I'm currently doing. But along the way, I mean, after I finished library school, I went to the University of Michigan, where I went to library school. And I first worked for the National Archives at Archives 2, which is in College Park, in their motion picture, sound, and video branch. And I was doing reference, and I was also doing film inspection for them, looking at some of the most important holdings that they have in the National Archives. And then after that, I got a job at CNN, working in Washington, DC, in their DC bureau. So I worked in the library and archives there. They have a large video archive, or they did at the time. All that stuff's been moved down to Atlanta. But they had their own archive set up, and we were doing research, both informational research and video research, for the people who put all the packages together that go on air. So that was kind of a cool experience. That was all through Bill Clinton's second term, through the well, anyways, there was a big scandal at the time that we were covering, and in very close proximity to. And then I came to UNC in '99, and I've been with UNC since then.
Awesome. That is quite a journey.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why.
So one last question for you.
Sure.
If you had to pick one folk artist who is the most influential for you, somebody that holds, a special place in your heart, who would that be?
I guess I would say Doc Watson, because, all the reasons I mentioned before. But also, I worked on a project releasing one of the tapes that we had in the collection. We released it as a CD and also a vinyl record. But it allowed me to really sort of explore his life a little bit more in terms of like growing up, in Western North Carolina, becoming a professional musician, and but also, he had these roots, deep roots in the music, learning the songs from his mom and his dad, and also from the radio. But he was such a warm personality. He really sort of embodies the music in such a personal way. And his music's so much fun to listen to. He was a great storyteller. And, he did this throughout his whole life. I've just been listening to his music since, I don't know, I guess since I was like in college, really. So, I've just carried it along with me, and, it's been really fun to explore it in greater depth.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah, sure.
I really enjoyed it. Do you have
Oh, good.
anything, Hannah?
Yeah, so we are just doing a couple programs focused on folk music and how to get families to understand the importance of folk music and how to share folk music with their children. So we are
Fantastic.
reading a couple books, and we also did an interview with Steve Place.
Jeff Place.
Jeff Place.
Oh, okay, yeah.
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 So we interviewed him the other day, and so we were like, we'll get a national guy and a North Carolina guy. So
Yeah.
we're excited.
And
Yeah.
actually, Jeff was my mentor when I started working at the Smithsonian.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he was the one who really turned me on to what I'm doing now.
That's
So,
super cool.
Yeah.
He's
He's a very cool guy.
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah, Jeff's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. I feel like we got lucky. We got some
We
pretty,
did.
pretty great people.
Cool. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank
thank
you so much. Have a great rest of your day.